Okay, ready to jump back in, Mr. President?
Sure am.
Okay, so, Lakovan. We're beginning our briefings on the current diplomatic situation.
Let's see. The Blue Mansion in Lockhaven hosted us for the important diplomacy gathering. The doors opened and
David?
David Wishy,
Whiskey. I always say it whiskey.
Whiskey. Once a lecturer to me, now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, gently made his way towards my desk.
And by the way, if I remember correctly, he's actually... he's the son of the first president, Arthur S. Whiskey, who was killed in the coup.
I see.
But he is a very distinguished figure. So he's pursued the diplomatic service and being apolitical rather than pursuing personal power.
Leave the formalities aside, David. Please take a seat.
Right. I am still getting used to your new position, Anton. Also, he was your university
Lecturer, yeah.
point.
He slowly sat down, taking care not to aggravate the arthritis in his knees. He'd always had an air of gravitas about him, and old age had only served to deepen that. After he settled himself, he regarded me with delight, his blue eyes sparkling.
Look at you, Anton. Fourth president of Swordland. What a privilege for me. I still remember the first day you took my class at Deer University of Culture. And remember how hard we worked on the Agnolia trade deal together?
Countless late nights at the ministry to finalise. It was an experience for sure.
We signed our best trade deal yet. The good slew of trade advantages over Agnolia. It's even somewhat unfair from my point of view. Somehow the inexplicable ebb and flow of life has led us to here.
This is our opportunity to shape the future, and we'll do precisely that.
I'm looking forward to our new foreign policy.
He started coughing again, this time for longer. Would you like some water?
Oh, yes please. Tea and water sounds nice. Thank you very much.
He smiled. Livia brought 2 cups of tea along with a glass of water and placed them on the table.
Seems you still remember how much I like tea. Nowadays it really does wonders for my throat.
How's your wife?
My lovely Catherine is as energetic as always. Age has hit me harder than her, for sure. She still does her daily jogs, unlike me. Nothing can challenge time. Nothing. How is the Rain family?
Slowly starting to get used to routines.
As time passes, I realize it more. Family is the most important thing in life. We must take care of them.
The door opened. Yosef and Lucian joined us for the briefing as the tall case clock hit the hour mark. Petia, however, was missing. I wondered if he was late from all the drinking he did at the party in Lockhaven.
We'll talk more later, President Rain. Welcome, everyone.
Let's begin.
Very well. Start by providing a brief overview of our current status with our neighbours. Who would you like to start with?
Can we go to the map for a sec? Is that possible? Yeah, Agnolia. And which is the country to the south?
That would be Lesbia, which is
Lesbia,
the capitalist republic.
Yep.
And then Wayland, which is kind of slightly like Syria before the Civil War.
Okay. And what about the country near Agnolia across the pond from them?
That is Valgsland, rather.
Yep.
They are they call themselves socialist, but they're kind of a communist light country. They're a one-party state, but they are democratic.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go back. I'd like to hear about Agnolia.
Our brotherly nation to our northeast, Agnolia, they are still diplomatically non-aligned and probably has the most democratic system in our whole region. Economic stagnation is a worry for them. Their primary issue is their heavy reliance on us for foreign investment and their trade with Rumburg in the event of another war. Magnolia is our most friendly neighbour. We have been allies for the longest time after Rumburg annexed their territory in Dome. This fact needs to be a part of the equation. Unsurprisingly, the Agnolian Prime Minister Van Horten. Prime Minister, it's a republic, but they have a Prime Minister. Okay, alright.
Interesting.
Unsurprisingly, the Agnolian Prime Minister, Martin Van Horten, is expecting better cooperation through a new, fairer trade deal with us. It was one of his election mandates.
I think a more comprehensive trade deal sounds beneficial to all sides.
Both sides could certainly gain from it, but Agnolia has more to win than us. They want to protect their weaker industries we are profiting from selling our goods there. Additionally, latest numbers indicate that currently 1 million Agno-Swordish citizens live in the Agland region of Swordland, which creates a link between foreign policy and our internal affairs. These people have suffered socio-economically, which led them to crime and other problems. In addition, a relaxed immigration policy was one of Agnolia's main requests. It is unacceptable. Most of the migrants in our country haven't even assimilated into Swordish culture. Adding more won't help.
I'm supportive of relaxed immigration.
I would rethink this matter seriously, Mr. President, because it has great influence on our society and its values.
Okay, tell us more about Valgsland.
Our cousins of old across the Markian Sea wish to have good relations with us. As we all know, Valgsland is a socialist republic. Aligned with United Contana, they are an important regional player. It's also the most significant sea power in eastern Mercopa. We had hostile relations with them after several wars in the 19th century, which we would not want to experience again.
I did remember right. I thought they were the Navy guys.
So are the Agnolians, by the way, but Valgsland is an island. It's actually an island, even though you can't quite tell it from the map. Recently, the relationship has warmed up thanks to Emmerich Hagel. As a result, diplomatic talks can be conducted in the future.
Breaking the ice with Valgsland could be good if it would arise diplomatically.
I love it how we can literally just bring up the Great Fire of Conriat, which is like literally something that happened 200 years ago.
Yeah.
These people weren't even alive, and we're still gonna hold it against like their ancestors.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, people change over time. Society, like whole society.
Well, it's not even that; they're completely different people.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. And like a lot of people still bring stuff up like that and can't let it go.
It's like those Germans, those dastardly Germans. They're war.
Well, that's what I mean. Germany is not Nazi Germany.
They make pea porn now.
Fuck. Alright, well, I want to break the ice with Valgsland.
and they consume lots and lots of anime.
Well, I'd be interested to know Valgsland's stance on anime.
If they're anything like Russia, did you know that Russia is actually the largest non-English market for anime? And it's the largest single nation.
Wow.
And it's fascinating because they're such a macho culture. I'm like, I'm going to be tough and fight for the country. But literally all it's done is it's promoted one of the most massive countercultures on Earth.
Sociologically interesting for sure.
I agree. They could be potent potential allies in my opinion. The situation in the region necessitates that we find allies. I haven't been in good relations with us for the past 200 years. And recently they have also joined the Communist Kontanan Security Pact, subjugating themselves to United Kontana. That's a little bit more debatable. They're kind of like an analog for Yugoslavia, who, as it turned out after the fall of Yugoslavia, they had very detailed plans, having their entire army collapse, but then they'd, like, literally they'd only hold for long enough to remove all of their arms and ammunition, to disperse them to, like, tens of thousands of hidden cache locations, like almost like a geocache type thing. Except they'd be hiding guns and ammo, and then they'd basically, their army, which was only pretending to collapse, would wage just the mother of all insurgencies. And they had separate plans for fighting against both NATO and for the commie bloc, and that's kind of like Valgsland.
Okay.
But obviously, like, this is Joseph's take on. On top of that, there are territorial issues between Agnolia and Valgsland because of the Helgeland Island. The Swordish Navy is very concerned about the volatile situation. So, I'm not sure if you've, like, heard about the history of Cyprus. Of Greece and Cyprus between
I'm
Turkey.
not full up on it, but I know of it.
So I'll give it in context of this. So historically, it was a Valgslandish island. When Valgsland had their revolution, there was a certain amount of instability and killing. So Agnolia, in order to safeguard the life and livelihood of their minority on the island, sent a naval task force and basically invaded and annexed the island. And it's currently owned by Agnolia. But the majority of the population is Valgslandish. And they tend to want to be reunified with Valgsland, and it's basically been a major diplomatic issue ever since. But, you know, Agnolia also has historical claims on the island. They have ancient colonies in the north. It was settled by people of both factions, but the majority population is actually Valgish.
Okay.
And that's also basically the story of Cyprus. Unfortunately, billions of Swordish Ren worth of cargo is transported close to Valgslandian maritime borders on the Marchian Sea and the Grey Strait. This causes significant risks to our imports and exports in case relations deteriorate.
We can't expect the worst.
Joseph, the Navy is keeping an eye on the situation from a distance, right? We are actively monitoring the sea routes and the cargo ships. For now, there is no immediate threat.
Okay. So what's the situation in Welland?
Victor Smolak has been expanding his powers among protests from the Wessex people. However, he is quite positive about a normalization of the relationship between our countries. Wayland itself had a civil war. Although authoritarian, he is the first leader to return his nation to any true sense of stability. Reports indicate that they have been warming up to the Kontanan Federation of Communists for international aid. As you know, Wayland's stability has been a concern in the past, especially for the production of oil wealth, which has led the Arcasians to interfere in the region. But if we want to help them, we must not treat refugees like we did in the 1930s.
Trade agreement with them would improve stability and increase mutual trade.
There would be many bargaining chips discussed. Wayland could be a new partner in the region. We would also invest in stability there. Our main goal should be to avoid a refugee crisis like the late 1920s. That civil war had major security and economic repercussions on Swordish soil. One of the demands of President Smolak was to tighten our immigration laws so that political refugees don't escape into Swordland. There has already been a recent purge that has pushed many Bludish to flee to Bergia, and it is definitely troubling. Gumran Outpost has regained its importance due to this. I'm sure you would remember your winter at the outpost, Mr. President. You followed my orders to the letter.
He was right. I did remember that winter. I remember the despair in the refugees' eyes when we forcefully escorted them back to the Wayland border.
It is in our national interest to prevent the formation of a failed state on our western border. Wayland has been increasingly aligning itself towards the Communist alliance. That could upset some of the capitalist powers.
Let's move on.
Two important neighbouring countries remain, Lesbia and Rumburg. Which would you like to hear about first?
Let's discuss Lesbia first.
Our southern neighbour is aligning itself more and more with Arcasia and the Ato alliance. They are the jewel of the continent and the second largest economy in Murkothipa. Though wealthy, Lesbia suffers from excessive economic inequalities. Our past relations with them have been great during the last decade. Their investments into Swordland have dwindled, however, due to our previous instability and the Civil War.
Allying with the richest regional nation could be beneficial, it's true.
It could be, but also mean that we draw closer to Arcasia and the Arcasian Treaty Organization, the ATO. I am certain that the recession has a lot to do with their retraction of investments. Once they see that money isn't the picture, they vanish rather quickly because they are capitalists. They have shown a selfish attitude during the Wayland Civil War. They closed their borders and funneled refugees towards Swordland, despite the fact that their troops occupied the Wayland oil fields and caused much of the instability and the flight of those same refugees.
It's true that our core values are very different. It will be hard to see eye to eye.
I completely agree. Lesbia has for a long time benefited from us through our old tariffs. They are after exploitation. There are hundreds of very privileged oligarchs who invest inside and outside Lesbia. Some made significant business investments in the cities of Benfrey and Valgan to our southeast. Did not alienate them.
Okay, situation with Romberg, what's going on?
Now to the most troublesome nation, Rumburg, a constitutional monarchy led by the Queen, Beatrice Livingston. I highly advise caution and calculated action against Rumburg. Our military must be prepared. The threat is real. They are strong and have the motivation, as well as the means, to damage us. We shouldn't give them any reasons to pursue aggression.
I'll take your advice into consideration.
These types of nations will always try to make a casus belli, a reason to declare war. While Thorenberg openly denies such claims, their past and current actions make it clear that they want to destabilize us. The weapons caches found by our intelligence agency clearly show what their goals are. Our military must be steadfast and our diplomacy valiant.
Yeah, the Romberg threat is one of our top priorities.
We are always in dialogue with our Rumburger ambassador, and we will always make sure that a channel is open to solve these issues diplomatically. We could use their aggressive attitude against them by convincing the international community.
Lucian grabbed the Lockhaven Times newspaper and put his finger on the article about the latest diplomatic incident.
Their abrupt announcement about the closure of the Rumburg consulate in Lakavan is yet another step in their escalation. This covers the overview of the current situation. We will move on to our trade negotiation in response to Rumburg's diplomatic escalation.
The sun began to set over the hills surrounding Lockhaven. The team was ready to give advice on the new trade initiative in response to the latest diplomatic incident with Rumburg. PTO arrived late and a little rougher than usual. Must have been the drinking.
Hey there, folks. Excuse my delay. I'm sure I didn't miss anything we didn't already know. You were supposed to be part of this meeting, also on time. Punctuality is important. We are talking about serious subjects. So, by the way, the top one is a lie.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, let's lie. That's why he's late. Let's move on. Let's just move on.
Ah, yes, it went very successfully, sir. Vice President will be part of trade delegations, so it's very important to have his input on this subject. Also on the Rumburg incident. There are two issues at hand. Which should we tackle first?
Let's go with the diplomatic incident first.
Okay, Picard.
Trying to be more like Captain Christopher Pike, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Rumburg Consul Sir Brian Harrington announced the closure of the 120-year-old consulate. Now their diplomatic staff is leaving the city to go back to Thorenburg. He blamed the lack of security in Swordland due to the assassination and the subsequent protests. But it could very well be that they are making excuses. Those bastards! First they close their consulate and then they blame our security?
Their concerns could be genuine, but it is an overreaction.
Agreed. Other diplomatic missions have worked with our security units to increase the protection of their staff and buildings. The neglect of President Alfonso and the chaos of the elections delayed our diplomatic efforts. Now there are only 2 Rumburg diplomatic missions left in Swordland.
Yeah, we're accustomed to the usual rhetoric, but this is far more serious.
They are playing with fire. Look at what the Wayland destabilization has done to the region. Swordland breaking apart would tear Macopa apart. In my entire career, I have never seen our Rumburg relations suffer as much as they are now. The previous low point was their annexation of the Agnolian territories in Dome.
Yusef was furious, barely kept himself from slamming the desk.
There are worrying deployments, like the smuggled arms and the build-up near the border. Our military must be buffed up to stand against a regional power like Rumburg. We either respond to this aggression with a diplomatic condemnation, or we retaliate by closing our own consulate in Dome. I want to say that an escalation would be risky this early in our presidency. We should focus on creating a negative image of Rumburg in the international scene to discourage them from further actions such as this. The people of Swordland must be protected no matter the cost, and I believe we are showing weakness unless we respond equally.
Let's go with writing an official diplomatic response. I'm not going to go tit for tat with these people.
Be the adult in the room, Mr. President?
Exactly, someone's got to do it.
As you wish, Mr. President. I shall begin work by immediately informing the Minister of Foreign Affairs and drafting the diplomatic protest note. I wish we had reacted more strongly. If we seem to be avoiding confrontation, they will keep escalating. On the other hand, I'm glad that we are taking a more cautious road.
We should move on to the trade initiative. Let's go.
Our primary goal will be to successfully sign a trade agreement with one of our smaller neighbours. We have 2 options with our trade initiative. Start new negotiations with our old partner Agnolia and forming a new cooperation.
Let's go with Agnolia first.
First off, the reason behind this option is to be more diplomatic than economic. Although, of course, we can't forgo the added economic value that a new trade deal would add. Agnolia is an old ally and a valuable trading partner. The point we are at, the early negotiations, is around the steel trade. They are demanding that we buy their steel for a higher price. That is because they think that the previous deal is far too unbalanced. Their second main demand is a privileged access to our agricultural market. If we are to fulfill their demands, in return, they are offering a full alliance with Swordland against Rumburg. Looking at the current advances of Rumburg near our borders, having a coalition would prove extremely useful. Obviously, there will be consequences for entering a full alliance, mainly the issue around the Helgi Islands. Valgsland has clear intentions on taking over the islands one way or another, and entering a military alliance with Agnolia will make them furious, even if we do not recognise their occupation of the island. I want to state my support for the decision to stick by our old ally Agnolia. Even though I disagree with their demand to relax immigration and believe that their annexation of Hedgeland upsetting the balance of power in the region. But we have cooperated successfully with them on the past on many issues. Agnolia is a solid partner for us. David and the President worked on the previous comprehensive trade agreement in the 1930s. Furthermore, they are well liked internationally. There are obviously subjects that we should still try to tackle, like our economies, the traded goods, and what to do with immigration. My opinion is that it is a good deal and we should go for it. The new Agnolian Prime Minister is trying to improve the existing relationship. Downside that we would need to make concessions, reality of any trade deal.
I'd be open to creating a new agreement that would satisfy all sides.
That would be the best outcome. If you decide that Agnolia is a good option, another point is that they have a very democratic system. After the recent elections, their Prime Minister has a mandate to arrange a fairer deal with us. Mr. Van Horten is also an avid supporter of relaxed immigration between our two nations. Many of our people share dual citizenships. Since we said we would keep immigration relaxed, it will help us. We still need to keep to our promise. Regardless, if we are going to increase our regional influence to previous levels, we might need to make amends with our neighbours. Ultimately, the decision will be up to you, as always.
Tell me about the trade deal with Welland.
Dealing with a fractured country like Wayland has its positives and negatives, although it will be lucrative in the short term due to their enormous oil wealth. There are also risks associated with dealing with such a country, especially our international reputation. They are proposing a co-investment project and a complete removal of all tariffs between our two nations. They are also offering oil in return for attracting foreign capital from our business interests here in Swordland. However, it is possible that there will be international ramifications of getting closer to a nation like this. All in all, they offer a very lucrative deal, Mr. President. More so than any other nation in the region. There may well be consequences. I certainly don't support the decision to become friendlier with Wayland. We carried their burden for decades, their migrants flooded our country, and now they expect a deal from us? Maintaining influence in Wayland could prove useful. Indeed, their stability is our stability. Yes, it's risky, but think about our influence on an underdeveloped region like that. We could also sell our products into their market more easily, and both sides could well benefit. I am of the opinion that it is too risky, however. Yes, we could gain resources and immediate capital. Think of the consequences.
It is risky.
If we wish to go forward with the deal, when the time comes, it will be the topic of immigration to consider. Victor Smolak is a known isolationist. Our promise to keep immigration relaxed will not help at all. He blames us for bringing Western interests into the region. He doesn't want his political opponents to flee here to plot against him. I personally dislike the agree of getting close to Wayland for just this reason. Me too. But I still think we should give it a try, at least hear what they have to say. Since we did not promise to align with either the East nor the West, it is very likely that their concerns would be more around the deal itself. Also need to consider the effects of our economic doctrine. The fact that we are headed towards a market economy have an influence. Good negotiations optimize the interests, which makes the difference become trivial. Both sides can make a deal on this. Very true, Mr. Vecton. We have a lot of time to prepare before our state visit. I believe this gives a brief overview of our current options for the future. Our trade delegation will begin work towards these at the end of the year. We expect a final negotiation to happen sometime next year. I'm very much looking forward to visiting Stalport and Raklatz with party animals like David and Simon. Ha! Joseph narrowed his eyes and stared at him. Well, that concludes our meeting, Mr. President.
Thank you all for coming. The meeting concluded and the teams dispersed, and the diplomatic action plan officially began.
Pained young swords member in Avery claimed that he has connections within our government. We have been investigating the truth of his claims, but were not presently able to find any leads. The investigation remains ongoing.
Posted on that one.
So that's two things we've had now. The first was the police trying to pay the young swords to attack a red youth post.
We need an ICAP.
I tend to agree, sir. The Constitution.
I came a little early to the meeting room before anybody showed up. We'd scheduled a meeting to assess the progress of the Reform Committee regarding the new Constitution. Took a seat in the Senate chair in the vacant meeting room as I waited for them to show up. Reforms were slowly becoming the most significant expectation of my government. We'd be changing Seoul's Constitution of 29. Most people nowadays blame the Constitution for the outstanding problems of the country. On the other hand, the reformists in the Assembly had been getting louder about their demands. What I knew for sure was I needed to do something about this encouraging chaos before it swallowed me. Meanwhile, Lucien, Petia, and Nia had been leading the committee to prepare for an initial draft for the constitutional amendments, so I was intrigued to hear their results. There was a knock on the door. It was Lucien.
Good afternoon, sir.
Lucien arrived exactly on the hour mark again. His punctuality could almost be described as obsessive. Good afternoon.
You're not going to accuse him of waiting behind the door? You're not the body double?
He took a seat at the table, took out a bunch of documents, spreading them out on the long table.
We should begin the meeting as soon as Mrs. Morga and Mr. Vice President arrives. We finally have some results from the Reform Committee.
How does it look?
Well, the situation is quite complicated, but I'm sure we will make it work, just like we accomplished many things before. We'll go over the details regarding the new constitution in the meeting.
A few minutes later, Petia and Nia also arrived. After a short chat, everybody sat down, took out their notes. I knew it was going to be a long meeting.
There is also a lot to talk about the future of this process. Let's begin to tackle the points of concern. Mr. President, our committee meetings were very fruitful, and we already started work on the constitutional draft together with the reformers. They demanded a little too much, but I've had success with friends Richter to create a realistic draft that could potentially go through the Supreme Court. A little. They demanded we rewrite the whole constitution of Swordland. The requests were definitely not outrageous, just not realistic in today's circumstances, just because it wouldn't pass the Assembly. Nonetheless, I'm glad that they are reaching out for common ground with us. If we can reach an agreement with the reformists, we will be very strong in passing this proposed constitutional reform through the Assembly.
Can we reach 2/3 majority?
If you can get Mr. Franz Richter to work with us on this, I believe we can. However, if we work with the reformists, we'll never be able to get the National Front.
Right.
We need the majority of our 130 seats in the Assembly to vote in favour. And with the Reformist Party, they can add another 70 votes. With this, we will easily surpass the needed 166, but only if we can keep the Conservatives within our own party on our side. Could be tough to unite the USP over this. You must make them follow you loyally.
We did it before the elections, we can do it again.
Albin Klavan is the reformist head within the United Swordland Party, our own party. He has already weighed in heavily in committee meetings. However, the Conservatives could be tough to break. Influence of the former presidential dictator Sol is still living strong within their wing of the party.
How many votes do they?
The Conservatives have around 40 seats. There are many unaligned people, and some of your loyalists might decide to show their true faces. So we need as many of the Conservatives to support us as possible, and there is only one person who can definitively make them back us. Gloria Tory. She's well respected by the Solists and the Conservatives. She'll be our biggest obstacle in the Assembly, and her demands will be extensive. I also have reason to think she might be in Orso Hawker's pocket. She will be tough to break, but we'll need her help to pass the bill.
Is it possible to pass the Supreme Court?
This will be our biggest difficulty, Mr. President. They are a significant obstacle. Even if we pass the Assembly, the Supreme Court has a final vote in all constitutional amendments, and they will likely work to block any change. We need at least 6 of the 11 judges to vote for the proposal, but Mr. Orso Hawker has enormous influence over its judges. He was personally appointed by Tarquin Sol shortly before he was forced out of office. And he's an old guard. We should reach out to the judges in secret. Some of them might be willing to break ranks in support of us.
They'll surely support a just cause for the country in its future.
Lucian looks skeptical. According to the Constitution, I am a member of the Supreme Court, which means you can always count on one vote. 2 of the judges are friends of mine and strongly believe in reform. They are of similar opinion. Consider them with me.
Okay, so we only have 3 votes out of 11.
3 votes, yes. But I believe that Judge Edmonds and the centrists can be persuaded, and she can bring 2 more. That brings us to a majority. They were never blinded by the Solist ideology. Yes, those 3 don't seem to be working directly with the Chief Justice. If we can get to Isabel Edmonds, we might get the 6 votes needed. That's our best bet.
What are the demands?
We should run down each of the main demands with the committee and get your input first. Mrs. Morgner can explain them further. We'll start with the first red line. The new constitution will fix the loopholes regarding the president's veto powers. Even though Mr. Richter put a whole show about why vetoes should be completely removed, the committee has almost unanimously agreed on fixing the loopholes, thus limiting presidential vetoes. My suggestion is to add a clause detailing the methods that the Assembly may override a veto with some sort of supermajority. One person should never be able to block the rest of his country.
Yeah, the loopholes give the president too much power.
Whenever we decide, it's important that we get a balanced picture. We will be making history by changing Seoul's Constitution of 29. The second one is about the judiciary. The new constitution will remove the Supreme Court's right to vote on legislation, prevent them from blocking reforms. This is yet another point was unanimously agreed upon by all parties. Takwin Sol established this rule to protect his constitution and his rule even after he was gone from office. We all know that most of the judges are still his pawns. Constitutional amendments will still be very difficult to accomplish with a reform like this, particularly because we will keep the 2/3 vote system in the Assembly to be able to propose change. However, the judiciary should not have final say in amendments.
We need the court to even pass this change. Why would they even support this?
Most of them won't. I've already talked about my vote and a possible agreement with the centrists under Chief Magistrate Edmonds. And this could change things. Remember, Mr. President, we only need to pass this vote just once, and then there will no longer be a problem. Apart from these two critical points, they have other major demands. Reformists want to reform the appointment procedures of ministers. Mr. Richter clarified that the Assembly should have a say in the formation of the Council of Ministers. That is something a majority of our party also supports. Well, Mr. Richter also talked about abolishing the Member of Honour rights of President Takwin Sol that gives him absolute immunity and makes him a permanent member of the Assembly. Well, that one is a controversial one. I doubt the Conservatives in the USP would like that. That would abolish both the presidential palace of the former president, Takwin Sol, his guard of honour, and his legal status as immune from prosecution. The immunity of the justices and the impeachment of the president, limiting the power of presidential decrees. All of this came up during the committee. Yes, the reformists expect big reforms, while our faction in the USP are not very keen on pushing changes that are too great. I'd say keeping everything in the middle ground is the safest bet. No need to agitate anyone too much.
I disagree. We'll push for comprehensive reform.
I'm with you on this, Mr. President. Well, regardless of what President Dave decides, we will need to work together to push this agenda. Now, as we have a better picture of your intentions, sir, I will start reaching out to my contacts to begin a draft process. I'll present your input to the committee and to the central justices. I think this was yet another fruitful meeting, sir.
Your service is appreciated.
Thank you for your kind words. You can count on us, Anton. And me too, Mr. President. I think this is where we'll call it, sir. Have a good day. Perfectly on time.
They left the room. I think maybe after this little report, maybe we should call it here too.
The Mayor of Conriat, Chris Shah, reports that the decision to start construction of the L1 high-speed railway has caused industrial investors all over the country to invest money into regions near his city. Mayor is hopeful that the completion of the project will result in substantial economic growth in Conriat.
Well, that's great news because usually we get more corruption news on those reports. So
Yep.
I'm happy about that.
So hopefully we are starting to turn things around. Are there any other minor reports? Yep. Chorus has begun the planning phase of the L1 railway, including clearing land and transporting equipment. Construction of the railway will begin starting in the next months at Holsword.
Fantastic.
And this little bar basically shows the progress of the railway construction.
Absolutely fantastic stuff.
So, what are your thoughts, Mr. President?
I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
What do you think about the internal situation?
Like I said, I want to open an ICAC yesterday.
So ICAC, negotiation, preservation of freedom of speech, however.
Hmm.
And externally, what are your thoughts in the region?
Well, I want to build up our relationship with Agnolia because they're our mates.
Yep.
I feel like that's the right thing to do. I'd also like to get Vogsland on at the table as well, and maybe we can help sort that dispute with the island.
That could be very difficult. So we may very well need to pick one.
Well, if we pick one, we're going to go with Agnolia. But even if it's difficult, if there's a way to get Vagsland on the table as well, I'd like to go for it.
We can certainly get Valksland to reach a trade deal with us, unless like we do anything that really tees them off. But having a military alliance with both, given that they've fought each other in the past, might be a bridge too far. Just warning you.
Yeah, it's fine. Got to try though.
So the situation to the south. We got Wayland and we got Lesbia.
I'm more leaning towards Lesbia. Wayland just sounds like a fucking headache to deal
They
with.
certainly could be, sir. All right. And on that note, one last thing.
Mhm.
Suspects in the Bernard Circus investigation.
No idea yet, to be honest, but the fact that the police were trying to get the young swords to fucking burn down a building makes me feel like it's someone within our government.
Yeah, certainly there was another arrest in Avery who confirmed that administrative
Yeah, that's
officials.
that's right too.
Uh,
Exactly. That's why I want to get an ICAC put together because something stinks within our cabinet. I don't know who it
and
is.
within our police forces too. How do you think that the investment in Nintendo is going to turn out?
Honestly, with all the talk of it's a guaranteed return on investment, I think it's going to fucking go south real quick. I think it's the Suzerain equivalent of investing in NFTs, and I'm very nervous about it.
Oh come on, Nintendo did great. You got your kids
Did they?
one.
Did they?
I'm so appreciative that you added Nintendo. Like I like it that we're adding things to the Suzerain universe. Yeah, the head canon, and we'll keep it running. At some point, one thing, can you give the final speech maybe in the Sean Connery voice?
Yeah, of course.
I think that will add a lot.
I
Uh,
forgot I was doing that.
Great, because I think the more throwbacks you have in like a thing like this, like the better it becomes. So from now on, can we just refer to Caronte as Murdoch?
Yeah, 100%. Why he's late. I was really hoping there'd be a scene after that where I could pull him aside and be like, if that happens again, I'm not sticking up for you and you can kiss your job goodbye.
Like we chose to spend time with family
Hmm.
in our backstory, so it was actually Peter who was like pulling the strings that sort of helped us get into power. So like it's interesting seeing like it's a lot easier to be angry at Peter like if you were the one who sacrificed family.
Yeah, but
So like
still, even if he did like help us get into power, that's no excuse to just be a
yeah, like
drunkard, irresponsible drunkard. Like, come on.
yeah, that's true. You do expect better from the vice president.
Exactly. So I don't think it's much to ask for. Just a little bit of integrity. Like, none of that stuff should matter. He should be getting us into power because he believes in who we are.
So you're thinking if his behaviour continues that maybe we give him the axe?
If I don't know about giving him the axe, but if there's definitely opportunity to pull him aside and tell him to get his head out of his ass, then I'm definitely taking it.
And who would, if we did end up having to replace him, like who would you see as a successor?
I don't know yet.
Oh, no one comes to mind.
No, not yet, because I don't really trust Lucian.
Who would you say is your?
I don't want one of the military blokes in as a vice president.
Yeah, that would definitely complicate the relationship. Generally speaking, there should be a divide between military and civilian government. In opinion,
Exactly. I don't want that power dynamic there.
we're not trying to recreate Nazi Germany
No.
or Pinochet in Argentina. Who would you say is your favorite character?
Let me think. Probably the wife, because she's such a trooper, and Serge, because he's
Yeah,
just
I
a
like Serge. I cried because like things can happen to characters. I cried for Serge. You know, he's the kind of guy who'd stand in the rain to give you an umbrella. So,
exactly, and because of that reason is why I said I could hold my own one.
who do you think so far are probably the most loyal members of our cabinet?
Probably Nia, but maybe Javid, whatever his name is,
David,
our
yeah.
electric David.
Like he's looking to leave just a positive legacy for the nation. I don't think
Exactly.
he cares about power. He didn't go down his father's path, even though his father was like a good and pretty beloved. What do we think of Lils, our Minister of Interior, head of the police force?
Well, I'm reserving judgment on her because I don't know where the corruption in the police is coming from. I highly doubt if we've got such a corrupt police force that it could be hidden from her for so long without her knowing at least something. And if she does know something, she's not telling us. And if she's not telling us, there's a reason for that.
Interesting point. Well, I think you're right about the need for a kind of federal ICAC.
100%. The place is like I feel like Gladys is about to come onto the fucking screen sometimes.
Do you think they're quite well written, the characters?
Yeah, I think so. I think they, especially with their little codex entries, they do a lot of character and world building in the background.
Yeah,
Which
I
really
try to
helps.
represent that in because I have read all the codexes at least at some point, but I try to like do that in the inflection when I do my lines.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the future of relations with Rumberg?
Hopeful.
Do you have any
Uh,
questions about Rumberg?
Not at the moment. It seems to be pretty straightforward, but they're the big dick superpower.
Yeah.
Hope we can make peace.
So we're gonna try and pursue a diplomatic course with Rumberg.
That's what I want to do.
Should we go with Lucian's approach of kind of calling them on their actions, or
Well, we've already drafted the diplomatic
yeah, protest? But
protest.
how like dirty should we go?
Just as dirty as necessary. Not, I don't want to go tit for tat. I just want to be like,
Right. What are your thoughts on the? We haven't really covered this, but the situation with the Bluedish people.
well, I think they deserve rights. I don't want to because what was the thing with that? I think Wayland wants us to tighten our
Our
immigration
borders with them, yeah. They're,
so that
they're
they can't
concerned
escape.
about Bluedish separatists organising in our region because we have more human rights here. That'll
Mm-hmm.
sort of leach back into their country, which you know, like it. Remember, it has gone through a pretty nasty civil war,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially Victor Smolak is the only person who's been able to. Like it kind of is the story of Syria, like with
Yeah.
Bashar al-Assad. Like You've got like an awful lot of bloodshed, and then a guy who is just like demonstrably like a cunt, but at the same time he's kind of the only person who's holding things together.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, well, what do you do?
We'll see how we go. I'm going to try. My whole thing with this, I want to try and just create a united federation of Swordland.
Okay, so you're thinking we don't necessarily join either the ATO or the commie block, but we kind of
I want to
form
unite every.
like
I want to unite everybody.
so basically like a united coalition based on rule of law.
Yeah.
Like we will be the third faction that attempts to negotiate.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Well, certainly, I mean, it's certainly possible. I like the way you think, Dave. I like the way you think on that particular issue.
Thank you.
We have many hurdles ahead of us, Mr. President. I think we can overcome them.
Me too.
All right, this is the Ahistorical Gamer signing out.
Bye.